in brightest day, in blackest night. All other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power. Oranges lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal. Yellow scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Marge face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Bokelman.
I'm Mark Marble.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 407, I believe.
Who knows anymore? Time is irrelevant these days.
I think it's 407 since I was working on the write-up and the XML stuff. I'm pretty sure we're only up to 407. But either way, even if it's not, it's staying in. So if it's 408, hey, it's good for the blooper reel.
All right, man. What are we talking about tonight?
And it is 407. Yes! The Lantern-related stuff for the episode, otherwise known as the least fun part of the episode. We're going to do the Green Lantern Season 2, Number 6, in an ever so brief recap of that issue. Luckily we got derailed last week when we did the DC Fandom episode, so now we feel compelled to start catching up with some of the issue reviews before we fall too far behind, because that new issue if it's not out yet, it's got to be out soon. Did it come out this week? It used to be the first week of the month.
Pretty sure when I was looking to grab the cover image for the album art for this episode, I'm pretty sure it said next week on DC.com. But let me double check.
Well, that's fine if it is, because there's a few comics I know that I got pulled, including the Joker War number 1 and actually a Marvel book, Maestro number 1 I want to read. So if Green Lantern, either way, whether the Green Lantern came out as the week we're recording or next week, I'll go next Wednesday, and there'll be a decent enough stash of stuff for me to grab.
Yeah, the 8th.
Good,
yep.
Cool. So we're not that far behind. At least we're not.
And if you, never mind, I'll make that joke later.
No, go ahead.
No, the joke would spoil what's in the issue. So
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when the next issue review will be more fun, because that'll be Far Sector, whether it's next week or whenever. That'll be Lord knows we'll be doing Far Sector before we do another episode of this thrilling second season of the Grant Morrison run. Good times. But before we delve into that, there's a couple of things I wanted to go back to, based on, as often is the case, things pop in. Well, one thing it wasn't something I forgot to mention. One thing is, but another thing was a byproduct of things that we talked about last week. So, number one, I want to talk about we talked about regarding, I think, the Batman trailer and things about casting and how people react to things. And at the time, I know I kind of said that there were like two main reasons why people tend to get bent out of shape. And then I realized there really were three, and I'd be remiss not to mention the third, because we mentioned Heath Ledger, and the third one really was applicable to Heath Ledger, because people didn't really get bent out of shape because he didn't physically resemble the character so much, which was reason one. And they actually didn't get bent out of shape because they didn't think he could act, or he didn't have the resume for it, because obviously he had a decent track record at that point. The third reason was applicable to Heath Ledger, which was, whose footsteps are you following in? If it's applicable based, that's a natural asterisk, because sometimes it's not applicable. If it's a character that's never been on film before, then that one wouldn't be applicable. But for Heath Ledger, he was following the footsteps of Jack Nicholson's Joker from the '89 Michael Keaton Batman. So that's a large reason why people had a problem with his casting, because they didn't see what he could bring to the table that could match the Jack Nicholson performance. Obviously now we know, but so that was one thing I wanted to revisit, that there usually are the combination of those three, like we talked about Jeffrey Wright, and nobody really react. I mean, some people might have had an issue with Jeffrey Wright being Commissioner Gordon, but the majority of people didn't even blink at it because we know who Jeffrey Wright is as an actor now. But if this was 10 years ago, then you could have had a combination of all three. Let's say you go back 10 years ago, you go back just to the Nolan trilogy, and there had been nobody had played Commissioner Gordon since, and Jeffrey Wright was at different part of his career. Then it could have been all three people could have got upset about it. Could have been, well, he looks nothing like the character. We don't know really who Jeffrey Wright is, so we don't know if he can do the role. And my God, he's following Gary Oldman. Come on. So I felt, because I know I mentioned Heath Ledger last week, it would kind of be remiss not to actually mention probably the main reason why people probably doubted Heath Ledger, which had nothing to do with the first two reasons I mentioned. One thing, so that's number one. Number two, and I agree with you last week because I remembered it, but I underestimated the importance of it. God, the inability to save any part of the death and return of Superman is so frustrating.
I told you.
And I remember it because I played it, but I legitimately, I don't think I had really sat down to play the game, trying to finish it, probably for over 10 plus years, maybe longer than that. But I made a concerted effort Friday night last week to try to get through the game. And and this is the funny part. I remembered levels 7 and 9 sucked. The 2 Steel levels sucked. They were hard. Steel Rain level 7 sucked, and the Engine Core level sucked. I remember them being hard levels to get. I really I misremembered, using the magic term there. I completely underestimated how hard the final screen was just because of the repetitiveness, which makes sense because it plays just like level 7, except this time you have a big bad. Level 7, Steel Rain, once you realize, and unless you use a cheat sheet or your memory is really good, you don't realize there's no big bad at the end until you just get to the end. So you're always leery about using your special attacks and everything else as you're working through all these countless bad guys that are swarming over you, and you have to get through over and over. But you think there's something at the end you might need your special attacks for, but there isn't. The final level, the Return of Superman, you have all those characters that you're dealing with in level 7, except you have Cyborg Superman waiting for you at the end, and you need your special attacks, and he actually uses special attacks on you. So I got to the end. I had some trouble with level 7. Level 7 I took a break and left it on and came back to it for like an hour later, and I got through level 7. Level 8 with Superboy destroying the missile that's going to Metropolis is easy as hell. Level 9 was a pain in the ass at the engine's core, but it didn't slow me down all that much. Probably by midnight or so, I was on the final level. I played that damn thing so long. I left it on overnight into Saturday. My thumbs were killing me. I was getting frustrated. I got to the end, and I was like literally one punch away from taking out Cyborg Superman a couple of times, and then I just had to pack it in because I just didn't want to leave the damn game on. I thought of you when I was going through that Friday night. It's like, oh my God. It's like, I remember that there was no save feature. I remembered back in the day vaguely that it's frustrating, but I really hadn't sat down to try to get through the whole game as opposed to just have fun and play through like the first 5 or 6 levels, which are really fun and really, you don't run from my gameplay experience, including my recollection and what I did last week. The first level you'll come into a little bit of problems for me anyway is the end of level 6 with Superboy against Cyborg Superman, but that's not much of a problem. You get through it. The Steel level is the first real hard one, I think, in the game. But oh my God, that was the first time I really tried to get through it. It's like so frustrating at the end because all these claw things are grabbing you, and it's like you're getting so close, and it's like all you need to do is get to the end with like maybe 2 full lives and like 3 special attacks, and you could probably win. But it's so hard because these things just keep coming at you. There's no save feature. The only good thing is when you die, you pick up at the same level where you leave off. They don't take you all the way back to the beginning. But oh my God! But yeah, I thought of you because of that. It was like, oh my! It was so frustrating because I got so close, but yet I couldn't save it. It'd be so much easier if I could save it and just come back to it like in a day. And I don't have to go through all these 9 levels just to get back to where I was.
I'm pretty sure, wasn't Maximum Carnage like that too? I don't think Maximum Carnage had a save feature either, which sucks because that was a really fun game.
That was another. That was the Super Nintendo version.
Yeah, the one with the red cartridge.
Yeah, I don't think I had that one. It's kind of funny because I do have almost all of my Super Nintendo games. I do. I went back to double check what I had. But yeah, but it's kind of the majority. I think almost the majority of the Super Nintendo games I think I had didn't have save features, or at least half of them didn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know Super Mario World does. I know Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past does. I'm just trying to think of the various games.
But Task Force didn't, right? Justice League Task Force didn't.
I don't think so. The Aladdin game didn't, but each time you pass, like, not necessarily a level, but like a section of the game, it would give you a code at the end so that you could, like, write down those codes.
Yes. Yeah. That see, if they did that would be nice. Which I don't think I think we talked about this. I don't think you ever played the Godzilla game for the NES. Yeah, that's what
NES. No, I played the Godzilla game for SNES.
Yeah, for the NES, which was really awesome because it was set up to be like, it was kind of like a chess game. The board was kind of like it's not true. It's kind of like a chess game, but it's like a lot of typical board games with the hexagonal spacing, and you have Mothra and Godzilla, and you're maneuvering through, and you have to get to the end of the screen, which is every time you kept advancing from planet to planet. Basically, you were trying to get to Planet X. So you were going through all these all the planets in the solar system, and you fought your way through cities, and eventually each level had a big bad, another monster you had to square off with. Whoever you beat him with, you didn't necessarily. I don't think, if I remember correctly, you didn't have to beat that monster with both Godzilla and Mothra. You just had to beat that monster with one of those two characters. And then you got to the next level, and eventually you get to Planet X and Planet Zero. But that game was another one that had a code where you would put it in so you could pick up on the planet where you ended, or the next planet you advanced to. That it was set up so you put this code in so it's not like you have to start over. But
no, yeah, I still remember one of those codes for Aladdin to this day: Genie, Jafar, Aladdin, Abu.
Well, this wasn't as clever. These were just like random letters and random numbers, which I do have. I do have some of them because I do still have that NES game. I kept it because I really enjoyed it. I think there may be like a couple of slips of paper in there that have the handwritten codes, which is kind of cool in case if I decide to bring that up and play it, assuming it still works, that I could, at least I know I could play that game.
Yeah, Genie, Jafar, Aladdin, Abu takes you to level 4, which is the one that's inside the genie's lamp. I remember that one because in the Aladdin movie, there were a bunch of obviously it's one of my favorite. I think it is my favorite. Disney animated feature, Hercules being a close second. But I'm pretty sure what had happened was Disney gave the script for Aladdin to the video game developers, which is, I believe, how it typically works. And in the first level, it all sort of takes place in the streets of Agrabah. And level 2, it's the Cave of Wonders. Level 3, you're riding the carpet to escape from the Cave of Wonders. And level 6 takes place in Jafar's palace, which is just the palace. But level 4 and level 5 are not scenes from the movie. Apparently, in the escape from the Cave of Wonders, after they are trapped down in there, Genie supposedly takes Aladdin into the lamp with him, and there was supposed to be a whole scene of that. And then there was, in the escape from the Cave of Wonders, how they come shooting out of that and they land in that oasis, and he's like, Genie, I want you to make me a prince. That's the whole thing. I guess in one of those they fell through something or crash landed somewhere, but they landed in an ancient pyramid and some burial ground or something, and they had to rescue Abu from being possessed or something like that. I don't know. I'm pretty sure those two sort of levels that they coded into the SNES Aladdin game, and I think it was also for Sega at the time. I'm pretty sure that those levels were originally supposed to be scenes in the Aladdin script in the movie.
That would make sense. That some of those things happen where, it's like the novelization. A lot of the novelizations, it's not just the authors expanding upon taking free liberties or free reign and liberties on. It's a lot of time there are things that were originally in the version of the script, and then of course things get edited out and changed and cut, and they end up in the book. So it would make sense that if, depending on how you were trying to time the release of the game with the release of the movie and everything else, that they would have a version of the script to work from, and there very well could have been modifications and changes, and boom.
Yeah, because I think like that scene where Jeannie's like doing, you ain't never had a friend like me. That whole number inside the cavern. That was, I think, all supposed to take place in the lamp, not necessarily out of it. So I think that was the idea. But anyways, what are we talking about tonight?
Oh, there was one last thing.
Okay, one more thing.
One last thing. This is not related to last week. I just figured we should mention the Chadwick Boseman thing ever so briefly. If only because it also opens the door for speculation about what they're going to do. Because it's obviously not just getting to the crux of it. It's obviously very sad, and it makes sense since we saw what he looked like recently. So people suspected there was something wrong with him. Not that. I mean, obviously the fact that he'd been dealing with like colon cancer for a long time that was a little shocking, but so it's obviously a huge loss across the board. How it affects the MCU is interesting, not just because obviously the people that have been rattling the cage for a long time, considering that Black Panther hasn't been out there all that long, but so many people were so quick to want to push him out of the way to make Shuri Black Panther anyway. Well, now that those drum beats you're already seeing those drum beats picking up. Whether I think a little bit too much trying to. Maybe it's true. It's hard to know, but it's kind of like being the agenda a little bit is being pushed by wrapping it up and saying, oh, Chadwick would want it that. Well, maybe he would, but that's not the real reason you want. A lot of these people want Shuri to be Black Panther, which is fine. If they're going to continue on, that would probably make sense to do something like that. But to me, it's more interest. It's the really interesting part is how that is yet another wrinkle in the Marvel release schedule that you think is going to have ramifications. Since Black Panther 2 is supposed to be a 2022 release. A May 2022 release, I believe. So now that comes down to what the hell they're going to do with that. You think, because even if Coogler had his script all ready to go, clearly now that has to fix. That has to be rewritten dramatically. So now you would think if James Gunn is able to, if he's now contractually able to start working on a movie, since Suicide Squad is done, and that movie's not coming out to sometime the summer or whatever next year, that would seemingly be that would be the most logical filler now. They could just move Doctor Strange, because they have Thor and Doctor Strange supposed to come out within like a month of each other, which is stupid. 2022. Push Doctor Strange back to a May release, just a year off of when it was supposed to come out. But if they want to stick to that schedule, which they would almost have to do on some level because of how many movies are backlogged on, this would be a good time to put Guardians in. This would be a good time to have Guardians filmed sometime next year and have that be the May 2020 release, 22 release, because it should have always been a May release, and it would fit a need. So that's the one thought that crossed my mind, depending on from a movie making perspective, that depending on contractual obligations of cast members and everything else, and James Gunn's, if he really is free to move on to another project now, really, because that movie would not have to start shooting until probably the summer of next year to be able to meet a May 2022 deadline. The script, obviously, we all know is done, because the script was done before he jumped ship to DC. So that would be what I would do, but depending on the actors, there could be contractual obligations. But so
yeah. Wakanda forever.
Yes, that is really sad. That is really sad, and it'll be interesting to see how Marvel handles it and how things change with that. It will be interesting to see. But it's tragic across the board. But thinking big picture, also, I couldn't help but think of what that was going to mean to them, considering even though he really hasn't been in the MCU that long, how important the character and Chadwick Boseman became. That is kind of that's yet another loss, but obviously a more permanent loss. But another huge loss of a major character also in the MCU that's gone. Even if they recast it, the point is it's not the same actor. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one thing to recast because, someone demanded more money or whatever, a la Rhodey or whatever, but it's quite another to recast someone who passed away. So. And
somebody who, for all accounts, was just about to start doing what he could do to bulk up again anyway. He was just about. Yeah, I think within a month of his death, I guess he was about he was about to start or had already started the preliminary stages of bulking back up again, or trying to bulk back up again.
Well, yeah, that and, stage 4 colon cancer, stage 4 of any cancer is intense to deal with, but
right.
The idea, and I don't want to sit here and say like Marvel caused his death or anything, but the process that Hollywood puts actors through to bulk up, and the diets and stuff that they go on, the constant back and forth of their physical bodies is probably not good for him, especially going through that process. But regardless, again, I'm not saying anybody caused it or anything. It's obviously something that he's been dealing with for a long time, but. Yeah, I can't imagine just knowing he had stage 4 colon cancer, stage 3, and then it eventually became stage 4. I can't imagine the rigor and the effect that those diets and exercises and how severe they were. Because I'm pretty sure one of the tricks I've heard for highlighting sort of like the
definition.
Yeah, the definition of muscles on film is to make sure you're dehydrated, so they pop more. So it's not good to be dehydrated, period. So the idea of doing that, just that alone, regardless of what, not even taking into account what you have to do to put on that much muscle mass that quickly, and the training to do whatever stunts you say you're going to do, as opposed to your stunt person and all that stuff. It's just I can't imagine doing that with cancer, let alone regardless of the stage. So yeah.
And I think what they said, he had it for 2 years, or he was been dealing with it for about 2 years before he died. So you think about that takes you back to. I mean, that means probably that if that's about right, then he probably would have he probably was diagnosed with it relatively shortly after Black Panther came. Somewhere around that time, after Black Panther or after Infinity. So that's really
get yourself checked out, folks. I had a colonoscopy for all the shit I'm dealing with, and they didn't find any polyps. So they said, outside of everything that I have going on, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do it. We'll see you again when you're 50. So, but yeah, typically they don't have you do anything until you're 50, but it doesn't mean it can't clearly come before you turn that age. So, talk to your doctors and make sure you know what you're up against. So they can do, even if you don't need a colonoscopy to figure it out, they can do blood panels and stuff to see what's in your system, and, do scans and things like that. So probably not the greatest idea financially speaking, but if you can afford it, if you're able to do it, which is stupid. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but it's a stupid ass thing that we have to say if you can afford it in this country. But that's just me. If you can afford it, get yourself checked out. You never know what's happening under the surface. I could have, in a way, I guess, figured out I had diverticulitis before I got an infection, or diverticulosis before I got an infection. There's a possibility they could have caught it before it became infected. You never know. But anyways, what's the issue we're talking about tonight?
Unfortunately, the issue we're talking about is the Green Lantern Season 2, Number 6, which Assault on Sector General. Mm-hmm. Grant Morrison. Still Grant Morrison. Liam Sharp, Steve Oliff, Steve Wands. Liam Sharp and Laura Martin did the cover. Tony S. Daniel and Tomei Morey did the variant cover. Brian Cunningham, still the editor.
Well, which cover did you get?
I think got the variant cover with Hal flying in space with the freaky eye thing. The tentacle eye thing around him. But I was just about to say, I actually like both. I really liked both covers this month, so it actually was a tough choice which one to get.
I went with the variant because I do agree with you. I liked both, but I've been really liking a lot of the variants for this series, which is actually interesting because one of the things I want to talk about after we get done talking about the issue is some of the ads in here. But I was just looking at it because I was obviously not able to pick up solid copy issues for a little bit, so in wanting to look at the ads, I wanted to check something. So two of the issues I bought were Green Lantern Season 2, Number 3, and Number 5. I have the variants for both, but if you listen, that's the cover of the paper, for issue 3. And then this is issue 5. the issue 5 is like on a almost thicker, maybe cardstock type thing. The cover for that, and they charged $4.99 for this. This issue isn't bigger. It's not necessarily, and it's my own fault for not noticing. I don't want to sit here and say I don't pay attention to price, but clearly I didn't this time because, basically I was just going through the store knowing my bill would be big because I'm buying up a shit ton of the stuff I missed while I was gone, right? So, I just didn't look at it this issue, but this issue 5 wasn't longer. The variant cover had this cardstock on it, and they charged a full $1 more for this thing. It's $4.99 as opposed to the regular $3.99. And I've got the variant for issue 6. Variant for issue 6, $3.99. Variant for issue 3, $3.99. So they charged extra for this weird cardstock they for some reason did on issue 5 and the variant. I don't know. Do you have the physical copy of issue 5 with a regular cover, or do you have the cardstock variant by what is this, Anderson? Who did the variant here?
Hold on.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah, let me just go back to the site, take a look at what artwork we used for that.
Gary Frank and Brad Anderson did the variant for this.
I have the regular cover. I'm pretty sure I have the regular cover for that one.
Do you remember if the paper was cardstock on that?
No.
Was it for both issues? Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember. I've already put that issue in a tub, and God willing, I'll never look at it again.
The completionist in all of us. All right, man. The floor is yours. Go for it, dude.
Oh God. All right, this is going to be bare bones, real bare bones, because there is stuff happening in this issue, but again, even the main stuff that's going on is relatively straightforward.
You have to admit, though, I was just about to say it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, this is this is your, again, Morrison dial to 4 or 5. This is not the worst examples of where you just want to give up reading or put your eyes out and never read anything again kind of stuff that we have experienced in this book. So I guess we begin on this hospital ship where, if you do remember last issue, and if you don't, we completely understand. Hal was in really bad shape from taking on Hyperman and Hyperwoman and Hyperdog and Hypercat. Hyper Ferret. It doesn't really matter. So they're bringing him to this hospital ship. Nurse Lalo there, who is this really freaky looking alien. Who, of course, how appropriate that this really weird alien chick, but Hal supposedly had a fling with this chick.
Or was joking that he did.
He might have been joking. But if you read the description in the beginning, when she said, kind of like she kind of like recognizing the desert dust and spice from triggers a precise and fragile nostalgia for times yet to come, which of course doesn't make sense. Nostalgia hasn't happened yet. But I think that kind of implied that she knew who Hal Jordan was either way. So Hal Jordan was really in bad shape, and he had been basically. He was on the verge of dying, so this picks up with that. They bring him in to get healed. He wakes up, and I do like that lion thing. He was really annoying. Keeps typical patient keeps asking for a nurse and can't get the nurse. Hal, he's been operated on. He also has these nanosurgeons that are still operating on him. I do like the Dr. Kildare, which obviously must be a play on Dr. Kildare, the famous doctor that I think was Richard Chamberlain. I think played Dr. Kildare on TV, but you have to assume Dr. Kildare is a kind of like a homage to that. Hal kind of wakes up. He wants to know where his power ring is. This is kind of interesting. How his nurse mentions the fact that that the ring barely survived the encounter with Hyperwoman, and it's undergoing treatment itself in the non-biological wing. So they actually have so the hospital, it doesn't just treat living beings, it can treat non-living beings like Hal's power ring in its work. So I do kind of like that. They have a whole bunch of Green Lanterns there that kind of that are paying their respects and kind of who help. Was some of these the ones that helped rescue Hal, or they just showed up at the medical?
Oh, hold on, I've got issue 5 still right in front of me, so let me see.
Some of these just showed up. We see the ones on the first page were the ones who came to rescue him. Yeah,
so at the end of the issue, the Crystal Dude, the Zudarian is there, and a couple of others, actually.
Including the one that acts as a life support system. But yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. That's Flash and one of these wing things.
Yeah.
So yeah, just at the end of the issue 5, it was the Zudarian and the Crystalline guy, and then one of the grown-up Hawk things in costume, and the Flash.
Right, and the thing with the tentacles, that was the thing that was the life support system? The one that's carrying them in?
I think so.
I think so, because that would be the only other one that shows up on the first page that's sitting there. But you have all these other Green Lanterns, and it's like, it's like, Al Jordan saved my home world. He's a machine. He's unstoppable. And while they're all there, basically waiting to find out what's going on with Hal, they kind of get attacked by the Quaman, and some other antimatter lanterns. I like the fact that he really looks like Deathlock on that almost full splash page. He does look very Deathlocky. So basically, all these Green Lanterns are being taken out and being decimated. Hal gets out of bed because it's Hal, even though they're telling him, the nurse is telling him, hey, you can't do that. I must admit, I do think it's kind of funny when Dr. Keldar goes wobbling off to see what's going on, and she tries to warn him about the thing falling out of the ceiling, and it just squashes him. I think that's kind of... Does it kill him? It looks like it might.
Yeah, there's goo on the floor that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it looks like he's a goner there. So Hal goes out, and this lion thing continues to be really annoying. This Crassius Quipe 6. I didn't do any research to know if we were actually supposed to know who this character is, whether he showed up before. To me, I don't really care. He's like the Cowardly Lion in one level, and he's a whiner. So Hal gets in his face. Hal sees one of the Green Lanterns that pretty much bought the farm at the hand of the Quaman, and he basically counteracts the rings, the early process of the ring, looking for a new suitable bearer. Hal calls that ring to him. And I do like the little exchange here where you basically have the AI, which kind of answers the question we had, whether we thought the AI of the ring, the Hal's relationship was just because of the world that he had been in inside the ring with Mirwidden and everything else, or whether this was something new. And it would appear to be something new because this ring, this ring basically explains to Hal the relationship he had with his bearer. And it's like, oh, we specialize in extremely elaborate constructs. Hal's like, I do hands. And he does a very nice hand too to crush his way out. So the rest of the issue is basically just Hal and the Zudarian and Crystal Lantern trying to deal with the rest of the antimatter lanterns. I do like when the lion kind of like just stops being a whiny little biatch and kind of like bulks up for a second, and rips the antimatter lantern apart. I thought that was really when he thought he was being left behind. Then all of a sudden, that got him mad. Then he kind of hulked up. That was kind of cool. I also like the fact that the little trick that the crystallized lantern uses to take out that one antimatter lantern. Hal also is able to, which ties into the stuff from season 1 and the stuff we'd rather forget, the 3-issue Black Star arc when in the fantasy world that Hal created. That part of it was using the evil star power.
Yeah, the Star Band.
Yeah, the Star Band. That because of that, Hal, because Evil Star is he's in this hospital, but he's incapacitated. But Hal's able to call on the Starlings and use them to help because of his tie into that power. So he uses that, and they start duking it out with some of the antimatter lanterns. The Quaman and Hal basically square off. Hal gets blasted. He gets up and says, "Hey, is that all you got?" And he falls flat on his face. The surviving antimatter lanterns leave. Then we cut to the end where we have the young Guardians there looking at Hal, and it's like, you can't say we didn't warn you, Lantern Jordan, but you have a reputation for not listening to maintain, don't you? And it's like, how does it feel to be dead? And Hal's like, again? Which is kind of cool, because his outfit is very Spectre-like, with the cloak and to be continued.
Which brings me to my joke. When we cover Green Lantern Season 2, Issue 7, that'll be on an episode of Pre-Birth. Which we might want to do just for the hell of it anyways. If it shows up as a much more Spectre, I mean, it looks Spectre-y, but will it play out that way? We don't know.
It's doubtful, but yeah.
If it does, it'd be funny if we did, because it shows up in the same feed anyways.
It's a cool costume, though. It's a cool.
It looks cool.
I do like that look. I do like that look. But yes, that's one of the, which makes sense because when we saw that costume, we saw like previews of Hal wearing that costume like months ago, and it's like, it's kind of interesting look. And now that we find out that he's kind of dead, it's like yeah, it is kind of cool that it does absolutely resemble Hal's look as the Spectre, at least as far as the cloak goes. Obviously, his costume is much more full-on Green Lantern-y color scheme wise than it was when he was the Spectre. But yeah, that part was pretty cool. So.
More wonderful Liam Sharp art. You know, yes. I don't need to harp on it. That close-up shot of the antimatter lantern, you know, hulking out, going all cyborg and shit. That's pretty cool. Super detailed. Lots of cool stuff happening around here. I don't know. I'm not an artist. I don't know how to articulate it, but it just looks fantastic. I do like this more painted style we get when we get space shots of like the space station that they're in, when that explodes, the kind of stuff that you see basically whenever there's a shot outside of the ship. It's a different style. There's more smoothness and painted look to it, including the ship itself. So I think that's pretty cool looking. Do you notice that?
Yes.
Yeah, the art style is definitely different. So that's a cool effect to use. So I did notice it. Props to you again, Liam. But I became uninvested in this series long ago, specifically with issue 2 of season 2. And you know, to be fair, by the time we got there, I didn't start. I didn't really. I was already not in a pretty good place with this series. So. Was it nice to get a straightforward sort of breather issue with some you know, fighting and a pretty easy to follow thing? Sure, but more relatively unintelligible or hard to follow dialogue and all that stuff. I maybe that's personal preference. Maybe it's a legitimate complaint. I don't care. When you're reading a comic, it's all about what your opinion of it is at the time. And this is not an easy read, and I don't feel like I should have to work hard to read an issue. So I've said it before, and I'll continue saying it just because I don't think we should, you know, even if we don't like it, we shouldn't really be phoning these in just because I think everybody will just get bored with the episodes and just go, well, why the hell don't you just not cover it then? I will continue giving my honest opinions. You never know whose episode of this, you know, of LanternCast is their first episode. So I'll give the context, but I'm not going to harp on it long. If you do happen to be a new listener, go back and listen to older stuff and you'll know more thoughts. But I'm not here for it. I'm not here for this this story. Far Sector to me is the superior Lantern book, and I'll leave it at that. The other stuff I want to talk about is not related to the story, but like the ads and stuff. But you know, I'll let you, before we get there, I'll let you talk about your thoughts on it. I know you did some of it during your recap.
I mean, you summed it up well when you said it's good that this is more of a straightforward story. It is good that, again, this is Morrison dialed down to 5 or 6, not dialed up to 11. You got, for whether it's just him doing this or whether DC begs him to do this, the fact that he does alternate this, so we very rarely get like we get more than maybe 2 Morrison dialed up to 11 issues back to back, and we do have we're more likely to have 2 of these issues back to back than 2 of these really crazy, horrible, banging your head against the wall issues back to back. But still, you know, it is relatively straightforward. Again, I don't know how thrilled I am to be going back and dealing with the antimatter stuff. I mean, I didn't think that was, maybe I would have had more of an impact if we hadn't had that whole divergence going with all these characters that they throw in from that a lot of people aren't going to even know who they were, you know, basically multiversity tie-ins and stuff as we were dealing with, like issues 10, 11, and 12 of season 1. That maybe if the Aquaman thing was more straightforward and we were dealing with that more, I would have cared more about that storyline. It's okay. I don't hate this issue. Was it great to read? I mean, is it something I'm looking forward to? Do I look forward to this book every month? No, I don't look forward to it. But you know, this is certainly not the most painful or difficult book to get through that I've read in the past couple of years, so that may not be much of a positive or a litmus test to go by, but trying to be positive, the reality is, since it meets that basic criteria, it's okay. It gets you from point A to B, which means we're closer to the end of season 2.
All right, so the ads. Part of the reason I wanted to talk about this is just what ads are in here. Not necessarily I will talk about the content of some of the ads, but just sort of the general theme of the ads. So that's why I got out my issue 3 and my issue 5, because I wanted to compare and contrast. In issue 3, the back page, the back cover really, on one side has an ad for Florida SuperCon, and on the other has an ad for the Scoob animated movie. In issue 5, the back of the front cover and the inside of the back cover are both ads for Snowpiercer, and the back cover is an ad for Tenet. In issue 6, every single ad is a DC ad, and I thought that was kind of cool. In some way or another. So in the front we have the Audible original of the Sandman, Audible. Yeah, I guess we could call this drama because we do have a full voice cast. I did know Neil Gaiman was a part of it, and I did know Kat Dennings is a part of it because I follow Kat Dennings on Instagram for obvious reasons.
You follow parts of Kat Dennings.
No, I actually do. I actually do like Kat Dennings. I like her sense of humor and stuff. So she grates on some people, but I actually enjoy it. But that's neither here nor there. Either way, she was talking about Sandman and her role in it. When it was being announced and released and stuff. So I knew Neil was a part of it, and I knew Kat was a part of it. I didn't know about the rest of the cast. James McAvoy as Morpheus, Riz Ahmed's in this, Taron Egerton, freaking Michael Sheen and Andy Serkis. Like, this is a big Audible cast. So I was already going to try and find this, but my anticipation and, desire to hunt this down much sooner rather than later has definitely amped up. So, for those of you who don't know, Kat Dennings plays the voice of death in this thing. So that's why. Let's see. One of the other ads is a DC metal guidebook.
There's
some more metal
way
stuff.
Too much metal stuff. There's metal stuff up to friggin' wazoo in this book.
A double-page ad for DC Fandom, which is advertising the August 22nd dates of it, and not the September stuff. And it's my opinion that you should have only advertised images of the characters you were actually going to talk about on those dates. But that's neither here nor there, because we see there is Green Lantern. And they didn't talk about him at all, but we'll talk about that at another time. This is interesting because I haven't caught up with Legion yet, because I was going to just like straight up read that issue that was advertised and solicited to specifically talk about the Golden Lantern. But I was like, you know what? I did enjoy, to an extent, kind of that first issue and the 2 issues that preceded it of, I think they called it Legion Millennium or something like that. But I didn't know that this Trial of the Legion of Superheroes issues 8 and 9 of Legion are going to be this massive thing, because there is a metric F-ton of artists on this thing. So I'm just going to name some of the ones that I recognize, and I definitely appreciate their work. Mike Allred, Jordy Belair, Cully Hamner, Dan Jurgens, Jeff Lemire, Dustin Nguyen, Michael Avon Oeming, Norm Rapmund, Doc Shaner, Liam Sharp, Ryan Sook, Nicholas Scott, John Romita Jr., Yvonne Hayes, Joe Prado, Kevin Nolan, Mike Grell, Gary Frank, Nick Darrington, Jim Chung, Art Adams, and that's about half of the amount of artists that are going to be working on these 2 issues of Legion. I don't know. I don't know if they're double sized, but they better be double sized, because if it's like every other panel is a different artist, that's going to be insane. But yeah, man, that is I don't think we've seen an artistic lineup on a single issue this diverse since, like, when Marvel put out those X-Men for Hunger things. You remember those?
Yes, vaguely, but yes, I do remember them.
Or DC with Who's Who or whatever. Like, this is a lot of people on just 2 issues, double-sized or not, of Legion. This is crazy. You have to, I mean, like, you don't have to buy anything if you don't want to, but if I were not a reader of Legion, I would just be intrigued by the sheer amount of talent that are supposed to be on these 2 issues.
Yeah, it is an impressive lineup. Probably not enough to get me to actually buy those books, but it is impressive.
There's an ad for Lois Lane for the sort of kids stuff that they've been putting out. There's an ad for a crossover between. Is it a crossover? Maybe. Doesn't really necessarily.
But the Superman thing?
Yeah, Superman Action Comics and Legion of Superheroes.
I think they're just pushing all the Superman related books. Is what I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, because Superboy is a part of the Legion, FYI. Jonathan Kent. There's an ad for DC Universe, which is interesting. And there's an ad for the HBO Max on the very next page. So the baby and its likely successor. But on the back, this is really cool because I actually found out about this before it was advertised. The Legion of Superheroes animated series that came out, I guess it says right here, the mid 2000s. Has been like really released and remastered in a Blu-ray collection. And it's available for purchase over at the Warner Archive. So WarnerArchive.com. If you guys haven't, go check out that site and see what they have for sale. Because, they also will sell you, the latest season of Supergirl and Flash and stuff like that. But there are pages of Blu-rays on that site of movies I haven't seen in the general public in a while. Or didn't even know existed in Blu-ray format. So one day I had just, I was on there and I just happened to be going through the whole thing. I think I saw somebody mention Warner Archive online, and I found this. And that's why, I want to get it, because I don't think I've made it like an obsession, like I have to do this, but I am of the opinion that I want all of the animated and live action DC content in a Blu-ray collection. Of course, I've gone after the CW verse and all this other stuff, and the direct-to-DVD movies and things like that. But I've also grabbed all of the DC Universe content that's come out on Blu-ray, and I've grabbed the CW animated stuff that's somewhat connected to the CW verse, like the Ray and the Constantine thing, and I like to get all of the DC related stuff and the old stuff that's been released and remastered on Blu-ray. Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond. But man, Legion of Superheroes, that was a controversial show. Not everybody liked this show. And it wasn't on very long. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. This is cool.
And as far as even from an advertising perspective, it's not, even if you knew about this show and you watched the show, it is kind of random. You just wouldn't expect to just turn the page and it's on the back cover this month of your DC books.
Yeah, for sure. So it's just interesting. Every ad in this thing is DC related. Now, one is Audible, one is of the DC Universe app, one is of HBO Max, one is of Warner Archive. So obviously, it's their parent company and stuff using, the various things. I'm sure they paid them for it or whatever, probably at a reduced rate or whatever. But it was interesting to see that every single bit of content in here was DC related in some way, shape, or form. I thought that was interesting and worth noting.
No, that is true. It was a good catch. It's probably just a continuation of the them circling the wagon of that effect that they're focusing on. Basically, they're all about themselves, and I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. But they're going to be distributing things themselves. They're going to be they're going to be promoting themselves, and it makes perfect sense that hey, we have this ad space, so even if we're not going to be exclusively doing this all the time, let's just do it. It's like at least with fandom right at the time, they knew they were going to be pushing that, and HBO Max they wanted to push. It's like and Lord knows they're pushing metal up the wazoo. That let's just go balls to the wall and just do it. So be curious. It will be something to pay attention to, going forward, to see if this trend continues or whether it's a one-off or whether this becomes the norm for almost all the things that are advertised in DC Books are related to Warner Brothers.
For sure. All right, that's all I had to talk about for this issue. Do you have anything else you wanted to discuss?
Blissfully no. I think.
All right. If people want to reach out to us and vote if the next issue coverage should be in a pre-birth episode, what should they do?
Well, actually, I was going to say I don't think Jim would go for that, but Jim is actually revisiting the Morrison books on trying to look at things from a different perspective. So he technically would not necessarily be against it.
So Jim is taking a parallax approach, is what you're saying. You said things from a different perspective.
Yeah, that is true. But so from a technical definition perspective, yes. But if anyone was going to be taking a parallax approach, it probably would be more. I appreciate parallax, I think, a little bit more than Jim does.
Hey guys, vote for the pre-birth coverage because that means I don't have to be there for the episode.
Oh, be careful what you wish for, Chad. Famous last words, and Chad was never heard from again. But he said he didn't want to be. All right, LanternCast.com. The email is lanterncast@gmail.com. The voicemail is 708-LANTERN, so you can leave us a voicemail or text us. You can leave a text message there, too, for us if you want us to read that on the air. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher, wherever you listen to us. We're on all of those. Please leave us a positive review. And last but not least, here you can follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Hashtag GLCast is the easiest way to track us down there. And as far as our next episode goes, we're not entirely sure. It may be Far Sector, but there's always possibilities out there.
For sure. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.